We are not an algorithm. We are humans who love the craft of voiceover and love finding the perfect voices for your project. Now, that is the kind of person I want to sit down and have a conversation with. She brings a couple of decades of experience in the voiceover casting world, and I know that there are things that we can absolutely learn from her. Welcome to the show, Mary Lynn Wissner.
Thank you. It's embarrassing, or like maybe a little humbling to say 3 decades.
3 decades.
Yeah. I sometimes now I'm thinking, oh, I don't know. Maybe I should stick with the two. But no.
Right? I've said that before. There comes a point where you don't want it to be over a certain timeline,
I
because then people
know.
start to question if you're old, are you
I
relevant, are you
know.
right?
I know. Yeah, I
Yes,
know.
I feel that. So
I've had that discussion.
we just say decades of experience.
I'll be truthful. I'll own it. I'll own it. 35 years. There you go. Actually, even a little bit more, because I started my company 35 years ago, but I was working somewhere else for a couple of years before that. So, but I was just a little child. I was this prodigy, and they said, "Oh, so I'm just kidding."
I would love to hear the story, because when you're a kid and they ask you, in school, what do you want to be when you grow up? And everybody says they want to be a firefighter or they want to be a pilot. Or I don't know that I've ever been in a classroom environment where I've heard a kid say, I want to grow up and be the most stellar casting director that ever cast in the history of Hollywood. How did you end up
Good question.
as a casting director? What led to that decision?
I didn't start out with you're absolutely right. When I was a kid, I wanted to be at first I wanted to be a Broadway star, and then I wanted to be a news reporter. I wanted to be Diane Sawyer. That was my dream, to be a news
Okay.
reporter. I love news. So I went to UCLA. I grew up here in LA. I grew up in the entertainment industry. My dad was a TV producer, and he was one of the pioneers of videotape. And so I grew up around studios and things like that. And then when I was a teenager, my parents wouldn't let me get into acting, but I still loved it. So I did all the plays and things in high school. And then when I was about 16, I got into doing on-camera commercials. I loved it. It was so much fun. And I did it mostly for the money.
Right.
And at that time, it was a really good time for my sort of look. They wanted that kind of all-American look and the freckles and the ponytails, the whole thing. So I did really well with that. I went to UCLA. They didn't have a broadcast journalism major, but I had always wanted to go to UCLA. So I went there. I had a major in English. And then I also concurrently went to Cal State Northridge out here because they had broadcast journalism. So I got 2 degrees. But when I graduated, I couldn't find a job. And, I was still living at home, and my parents were kind of like, yeah, okay, it's time to get a job, girl. And I mean, I was applying at news stations, radio stations, and I did get a couple offers, but, this was the late 80s. And back then, the pay was horrific. And
that hasn't changed in radio,
okay.
just so you know.
Yeah. And I don't know if I just, whatever. And probably was a little bit of it was fear. Like I was afraid, I don't want to move to Nebraska all by myself and start.
Sure. Fair.
So anyway, I looked in the Hollywood Reporter, which is a trade magazine. And I saw a job it said assistant agent. And I thought, well, I can do that. I've had agents, because I knew I didn't want to continue being an actor. I did that mostly to pay for college and stuff. And so luckily for me, it was with Don Pitts. And Don Pitts is the guy, one of the guys out in the industry that started the whole business of voiceover agenting. There was few guys back in the day: Charles Stern, Don Pitts, and Herb Tannen. Oh, and Steve Tischerman. And Don was amazing, and he had the creme de la creme of voice talent back then. And here I was, I think I was 22, and I'm like, okay, I'll do this. And Don was so chill. He used to just say, yeah, go direct Orson Welles there in the booth. I'm like, okay. And I was directing Orson Welles and Casey Kasem. And
that's not intimidating at all.
No, you know what? I wasn't intimidated. I was a huge movie fan, and he was actually very nice, unlike that, video or that famous thing you hear, frozen peas. Bob Bergen was 17 years old. He was a client. Like all these, June Foray, like the legends of voiceovers were our clients. So it was amazing to be in the booth and direct these people on commercials. And this was pre-internet and voice casting. The only voice casting facility was the Voice Caster. That was the only voice casting facility in the country. And so after a couple of years, I did get moved up to agent, but I didn't enjoy being an agent. It was intense. You know, I would be like, oh my God, I got to get these guys jobs. They have kids in college. And it was overwhelming. And then Bob Lloyd, who owned the Voice Caster, asked me if I wanted to be a casting director. And I said, yeah. So I jumped at that and fell in love with casting. And so again, like I said, that was the only voice casting facility in the country. I think one had opened up in New York. But back then it was agencies would either send their copy to the voice caster or to the talent agents. That's the only way they could get talent. And this was strictly LA or New York.
Yep.
Nobody in the rest of the country was getting this stuff.
Yep.
So we were nonstop casting all day. There was like 4 of us casting girls, and you'd just be in your booth all day, and they'd say, "Okay, Mary Lynn, you're casting 2 radio spots this morning, an animation series in the afternoon, and then we're gonna have you work on this narration project too." So every day was different, and it was just kind of like you'd open the lobby door, and then all the actors would be like, "Okay, what booth do you want me in?" And it was so much fun. It was so much fun, and I didn't know then how magical it was. You know, I mean, I always I wish we had our cell phones then, you know, and I
Yeah.
could have taken pictures
All
of,
the pictures and videos and
oh my
Facebook
God,
memories that could have popped up in
the
your feed from
legends.
sharing.
You know, I've
Yeah.
talked about that with a lot of my friends, you know, who are also sort of veterans in the industry. Like, had we only known, we were just kids.
Yep.
And so I worked there for 2 years, or actually a year and a half. And I had a few good friends, some agents, and Tom Pinto, another really very dear friend of mine that back then it still is, who said you should do your own, you should start your own. You're so good at this, start your own company. And I'm like, ah. And so I did. I started voice casting in 1990 and have had it ever since. So that's how I got into casting. And so yes, I did not start out being a casting director. It was never on my radar, but I fell into it. And I think when you fall into something and you end up loving it, you just continue to nurture it. And I always say I have 2 daughters. I always say it's my 3rd child. I mean, I treat that, you know, this business is a family member for sure.
So let's talk about the actual role of the
Mhm.
casting director, because I think that that's something that isn't always wholly understood. So in the timeline of, I don't know, a big commercial project hitting the air, we know agents, right? We get agents who send us auditions and stuff like that. And sometimes we'll see those auditions and we'll see your name or your logo on it or whatever. But how does the casting director, what role do they play and how do they actually fit into that timeline?
So we get hired by ad agencies or production companies that will reach out and say, "Hey, whether they know me, you know, let's do another job together, or they found me some way. We're looking for this voice." I work with the producer, sometimes a copywriter, account exec. I flesh out what they need, what kind of voice they're looking for. And then I will depending on the voice, I will reach out to agents. Also, because I'm a coach, I've been a voiceover coach for about 30 years as well. I send copy to students of mine all the time because a lot of them don't have agents. You know, it's
Okay.
really hard to get an agent now. So
Yep.
I send stuff to them. I throw the net out wherever it needs to go to find
Okay.
that voice. So yes, some agents I know, you know, they'll get our stuff on our letterhead and they take the letterhead off when they send the information to you. So you don't know it's coming from me. Some agents keep the letterhead on there. Some managers do, some don't. You know, it's I'm not particular about who. No, I take that back. I am particular about who I send it to, um, because that's my job. I need to
Yep.
find that voice. So whether that person, you know, whether an actor's represented or not, I will reach out to them. I'll find them some way. So that's kind of how that works. I have some agents that I have been close with for again decades, and some that are kind of new, but I really just have built a good relationship with them and I trust them and they give me some great talent. So after I get all those auditions, then I sort of curate and after listening to all the auditions and figure out, you know, who to send to the client. That's how that works. That's how I do it.
How much wider has the net gotten over the years? Like you said, originally
Oh,
it was literally LA, New York. period.
It's much wider. But and I'll be honest, I will be honest. And it's funny, I was a guest at a workshop the other night, and I said this, and I didn't mean it to sound cavalier, but seriously, I could cast anybody I need here in LA. It's LA, it's Hollywood.
Yep.
Every actor in the world is here.
Yep.
But, I do like to obviously spread it out and share the love. So, yeah, the net has gotten much wider. I do tend to rein it in a little bit compared to some other casting friends out there. Number one, because I don't have a huge staff. I'm pretty much the one that listens to all the auditions. And honestly, I don't think I need to.
Yeah.
I have never not found a voice
Yep.
with the way I do it. So sometimes I think, why do I need to do all that extra work and throwing it out to, 5 different agencies in Washington and 6 different agencies in Atlanta? You don't need to,
Mhm.
you know.
How much influence do you ultimately have? Do you get to go to the client and say, look, it's one of these 5, or
Good question.
ultimately who decides?
Well, so ultimately, I'm the gatekeeper at the, because the auditions come to me. So
Yep.
typically, the way it works, I always use this example. Let's say I get 500 auditions.
Mhm.
I listen to the auditions. I take that 500. My system is I usually narrow it down to, after listening to the first line, I narrow it down to like my top 50. Then I narrow that down, listen to their whole auditions, and narrow it down to like my top 25. From that 25, I will send that out to my clients. Some of my clients, I have some ad people say, I only want to hear your 5 favorite. Some will say, I only want to hear your 10 to 12 favorite. Most of them I can get to listen to 20, 25 people. So a lot of my clients will then take those submissions I gave them, say they're 20 auditions, and then they will choose. I do have some clients that'll say, okay, these are our top 3 favorites. Can you tell us about them? And fortunately, because I do know most voice talent out there, I can say, oh, well, Marc's great because he knows a lot of improv. He studied at Groundlings, or whatever I can add to it,
Yep.
I will
Yep.
add and be an advocate for the talent. So sometimes, yes, I do have influence on who gets chosen. I do have one ad agency that I work with all the time, and he just says, you pick your favorite. You pick the one that you think fits all this. And so I love that. Um, but it is collaborative in that ultimately I'm the gatekeeper, and then I'm giving them these choices, and then they decide where to go from there. So yeah.
You've had the good fortune of working with a lot of pretty big name clients over the years. I was looking through the list: History, Disney, HGTV, Hallmark, DreamWorks. I mean, name it, you've worked with them. What are some of the more memorable ones that stand out where you think back and smile like, I can't believe I got to do that, or I can't believe I got to work with this person, or
Oh wow, that's a great question. Because there's so many. One that always comes to mind because it reminds me of my dad. My dad was a World War II vet, and I got asked to cast this history project. It was a 13 episode series called The Color of War. I mean, this was years ago, but I loved that project.
yeah.
Because my dad was still alive then, and I would go and tell him what we worked on. It was 13 episodes. I cast the narrator, who ended up being Peter Coyote, who's just fabulous. But I also had to cast in each episode up to about 30 or 40 voices per episode, because I had to get, because what it was is it was all World War II, but in color.
Right.
And then on top of that, it was journal entries and letters home. So I had to get, American voices, French voices, German voices, Japanese voices, speaking English, of course. But it was such a wonderful, intense project. The director was really intense, but it was so joyful to me because my dad was so proud that I was
That's cool.
working on it, and it meant a lot to me. And ultimately, I was really proud of that project. Um, I've worked on some that I have really loved too, like commercials. You know, Years ago, we were the first to cast the Chevron talking cars. And that one is a Clio. It was like kind of a big deal. It was really exciting. And the ad people were wonderful. And they said, we don't even want voice actors. We don't even want actors. And they said, we want you to go out in the wilds and find people and So I would go to the mall and just say to people, if your car could talk, tell me what it would say. Oh my gosh, I need a car wash, whatever it was. That was really fun. And then they took those recordings and matched them to I don't know if you have Chevron there in Canada, but
We no,
oh,
but I'm familiar. But can you imagine doing something like that today?
no, because I had a mini DAT player, and most real people out in the wild, they're not, maybe, they're not actors, so they're just like, I think my car needs a wash, and so I was like, can you say that a little bit more, excited, or yeah, my car needs, whatever it was.
Just the reactions that you would get from people walking up to you, you walk up to them in the mall and ask
It
them a
was
random
weird. It
question.
was weird.
But it'd be a fun project to do, but
It was fun. I don't get, embarrassed or anything, but it did kind of humble me a little bit, because I was just like, hi, can I talk to you about your car? And they're just like, why did I park somewhere bad?
am I getting a ticket? Am I being towed?
Yeah, it was kind of a weird thing. I was at the Glendale Galleria, just walking around trying not to get the security guy after me.
So as you've done this over the years, you've seen a lot of trends come and go, no doubt. Where are we at this stage of 2025? We're coming into the fourth quarter, coming into the holiday season. My guess is you're probably already starting to see some stuff for early 2026 at this point. Where are we at right now in the commercial world for trending as you see it? What's booking? What are people looking for?
It's still real person, authentic, heartfelt, or testimonial, or snarky, reflective. Um, there is some cynicism there for sure. Um, and I have seen some, like, um, a little bit more upbeat,
Mhm.
not announcery. I don't want to say that, but just a little bit more friendly, reaching out to, what I always call the warm and friendly read, upbeat, conversational, which is, I really will never go out of style, but a little bit more than I used to see. I've seen that. And as I always tell my students, advertising reflects what's going on in our culture. It's that's why, as a voice actor, stay on top of pop culture, what's going on in TV shows, the news.
Wait a
That's
minute. So
so
is
important.
everything really angry right now?
Well, here in the
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we're in some crazy, tricky times. So it's reflected in advertising,
Sure.
positively or negatively. So yeah.
How do we take it a step further than that though? Because conversational, hate that freaking word.
Mhm.
Conversational has been the it direction for a decade. But 2015 conversational is not 2025
Right.
conversational. So how do we take that a step further beyond conversational?
You know, great point, because you're absolutely right. 2015 is not today.
Yeah.
Um,
But the directions still say the same thing. They still
right.
say conversational, authentic, non-announcer, whatever.
Because it is what it is.
Yeah.
But conversational today, if all you have to do is just spend 10 minutes watching TikTok, and you hear the way people talk, the people, or go to Instagram and watch influencers. I'm kind of fortunate because I have two daughters that are in their late 20s, and so they sort of keep me hip to what's happening with the kids. um but
Don't tell
having
me I gotta start watching
I
TikTok
know,
to
I know your
please
kids.
don't tell me I gotta start
Well,
watching
it's a
TikTok.
it's a time suck. It really is. I sometimes I'll wake up and I'm like, oh, I can't. So I'll start watching it. It's like, what, an hour's gone by. Um, but I learn a lot.
Yeah,
I've gotten some great recipes and, household tricks and things like that out of there. But you really do learn the way people talk. And conversational now is dictated on the way, our platforms out there, social media,
right.
television, you know, you just listen to kids nowadays. The vernacular, the things that are going on, really does dictate the way we speak. So that has changed conversational. People are more, they talk faster, I've noticed. Sometimes they don't enunciate as clearly as they used
Mhm.
to, so there is a way of speaking now that wasn't, as popular or wasn't even in our mindset or our world 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So things like that, you kind of have to be attuned to and listen to. I'm so used to listening all the time. I mean, I'll even when I'm standing in line at a restaurant, I'm listening to people. I'm
Yeah.
picking up on that and
Research
just,
never ends.
yeah, speech patterns and um you know the just all of that stuff, I think, really does impact ultimately what we end up hearing in commercials. Did that answer your question? I think it did.
It kinda does. I've got a couple of games that I will occasionally play on my iPad, and, you can't play a game on an iPad anymore without 50,000 commercial interruptions. But a lot of those commercials are more, I would call them UGC commercials as opposed to, like a properly casted commercial, or not that a UGC is not properly casted, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
But I watched some of those, and some of them I'm like, "Okay, I get why they did that." Some of them I'm like, "Okay, my Gen X brain cannot wrap around somebody talking like this and me actually ever being convinced to buy anything that they're selling." There's an age difference there, right? And so
totally.
that makes a difference too, I guess, who the commercial is ultimately targeting and what conversational sounds like. That's a factor. But has this UGC thing been an influence? Because so much of what brands are doing now is just trying to grab the influencer off of TikTok and have them just make an ad, whatever it comes up with, whatever you come up with.
They are so heavily valued, these influencers.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing I know. And again, this is probably the weird thing about the way my brain works, but I kind of got into this. One thing I noticed a lot about influencers, especially the women, they do this. They're always talking with their hands. It's like
Mhm.
there's the makeup, and then you do this, and if you just do this and this, and I noticed, obviously, physical things will cause intonation and inflection changes in our
Sure.
voice very subtly. But because they're always doing this, because they're looking at the camera, and I don't know if it's because most of them don't come from an acting background and this is their way of sort of emphasizing something, but it changes speech patterns.
Yep.
So that's something I've noticed that, wow, that is causing a different pattern or sort of phrasing in a lot of younger speech patterns, if that makes sense. So these are all things, and if you do that in the booth, because I've had students do that, try a spot where you're doing it kind of just the regular way you do it, and then try one where you're doing all this, and the
Hands are going. Yep.
things.
Yep.
It seems like overkill, but you will hear the difference.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to me. And so spots that tend to go, where they say we want a 20 to 30 something, start gesticulating,
Moving your hands around. Yeah.
get those arms and fingers and pointings out there. I do think that that is another thing that's different that we didn't have 10 years ago, or as exaggerated 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yep. Well, we didn't have the same level, like everything's so visual now, right?
Everything, it's
We didn't
irritating.
spend our entire day watching reels
No,
on
it's
Instagram
weird.
or videos on TikTok or YouTube Shorts or whatever, and so now that we're constantly inundated with that, it definitely has an influence in
It's
how we
disturbing,
talk and
actually. It's disturbing to me. Like if I've pointed out to my kids, like we'll go somewhere and I'm just like, God, look how many people are just on their phone. I'm not from that generation. I do it.
yeah.
Of course I do it, but I didn't grow up with a phone in my hand.
You know how
So
many times I've looked at my kids when we're out doing something and said, "Look, you have 2 choices. You can put that away or I'm going to run it over."
yeah, it's weird to me that it's just this appendage that they always have.
Yes.
I know we
Yes.
need it, but it's kind of sad too because they don't know what it's like to not have it.
Let's talk about, since we're talking social media and influencers and how that has actually influenced reads in the booth and whatnot. I haven't seen as much of this lately. Last year, I saw it a little bit more regularly, but auditions where they were actually asking for social media followings. They
Hmm.
wanted that as part of when you submitted. Are you seeing that?
Not anymore.
It stopped.
Yeah, I saw it. It was pretty heavy. It was pretty heavy during.
They didn't get
pandemic
the answers they were
time.
looking for, probably.
Could be.
What? All these voice actors don't have 1,000,000 followers?
I where I see it more, and I sometimes still see it, although we don't do a lot of animation casting anymore. But there was a time we kind of did. Now most all animation houses have their own casting directors. That's when I used to see it more, and
Right.
and sometimes on video game casting because they use that in their marketing.
Want a built-in audience.
Yeah, especially like if you're casting something for Disney or Nick, there's sometimes they have to make sure people are cool. But I rarely see that anymore. Rarely.
Yeah, I mean, when the trend first started, it didn't surprise me.
Mhm.
It's, built-in audience, right? If it came down to you and one other person and you've got 12 followers and the other person's got 50,000 followers, I could see where that would lean
Yeah,
and sway things. But I also wondered if they got to a point where they realized that, yeah, a lot of voice actors don't have massive followings. And so ultimately it's not worth it to even bother
yeah.
trying or whatever. So
It doesn't matter. Yeah,
interesting. It's funny that that actually went away when in some senses we were so much more focused on social media and all of these things today that you would think that that would become something that was more prominent. But
yeah.
so let's talk about what makes you lean in. When you're listening to you're sorting, you said 500 auditions, you say, right?
Mhm,
You're going through and you're listening to the first line of every one of those auditions and you're trying to narrow it down to
mhm.
50. What makes you lean in and say, that one's getting another take. That one's getting another pass. That one I'm listening to the whole thing on.
I have a process when I'm casting, and I can't speak for every casting director out there, but a lot of them are my friends, so I know we all sort of similarly do this. But I've got this down. I've been doing this for so many years. Um, so let's just say I get 500 auditions in, which is typical. I'd say depending on the casting budget, I'll
Sure.
get anywhere from 200 to say 500.
Okay.
On the first pass, because I got to get through 500,
Yep.
I will only listen to your first line, sometimes the first two lines, because I can do this. I just,
Yep. Yep.
and so what makes me lean in, and this is what's something I always tell my students is remember, you all sound the same to me because you fit the specs. So you're all going to sound the same in one way, shape, or form. Yeah, he might have a little bit more of a raspy voice, or the other guy might have a little more bass in his voice, something. But for the most part, when you're sitting there listening to everybody's first lines, you all sort of sound the same.
Mhm.
What makes me lean in and go, oh, is when they take that first line and they pull me, the board jaded casting director, into the read because they're talking to me. They're
Yep.
not reading to me. And there's something about the way they said that first line because no matter how many times I've said this, and I say it in every workshop, it's still it's sort of a phenomenon to me. 3/4 of those auditions I'll get, no matter how great their voice is, they're reading to me. There's something people do that I kind of call the hard start, where they hit the first few syllables really hard. Like, um, did you know at AT&T you can get this and this or something like that. So they hit that, did you know that, which automatically to me makes my brain go, oh, they're reading it. They're not talking to me. Whereas if you whatever you might have done in the pre-life with it or your process is, if you can make that not sound like you're reading and you're talking to me, you will stand out on that audition reel. Trust me, because I'm sitting listening to, guy one. Did you know at 18, did you know next guy, da, 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 da. And then when somebody kind of says, but did you know that if, whatever they did, their
Yep.
inflections or something, it stands out. Boop, I automatically shortlist them. So then I usually kind of narrow that 500 down to my top 50. Then I'll go and listen to those 50 guys' whole auditions, take one, two, three, whatever they sent. Then that's what I usually narrow down to my top 25. And from there, depending on how many my client ultimately wants me to send them, is what I'll make, my choice, the top 10, 12, or whatever. So that's how I work. So to make me lean in, it has to be something that stands out on that first line where that actor put some thought into it, like, yeah, okay, that casting director is listening to everybody's first line and we're all sounding the same. So I got to do something a little different, change the punctuation, change the phrasing a little bit, do something. It's like a broken record, like when well, did you have albums? I did. When you're a kid and you had albums and you know this one song so well, and then all of a sudden one day there's a scratch and you kind of go like that. That's sort of the analogy I use. It's like, whoa, I jumped up because it sounded different.
Makes me feel, I laugh when you say about having albums because I saw the most hilarious meme recently, and it said one of the reasons why Gen Xers are so angry all the time is because you made us replace our records with cassettes, and then you made us replace our cassettes with CDs, and then you made us replace our CDs with Spotify or Apple Music or whatever. And so when you
Oh,
say
I
that,
have it. I have all that, but I have an old school. I got like one year my kids got me a turntable, and I love going to buy albums and stuff. I love it. It's so cool because there's something about that sound,
yeah,
the needle on the record player. It's cool.
talk a little bit more about the pre-life. Expand on that because I think that that's something that doesn't get discussed enough, and I think it's a concept that people don't explore enough when they're in the booth and auditioning.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. What most people focus on is their voice. How do I sound?
Mm,
Do I sound beautiful? Do I sound ooh cool? And that's your number one mistake. Like, and I always like I'll say this to students: stop falling in love with your voice. Stop. You're already in voiceover. You're in it because you have a great voice. Let's just acknowledge that. Yay,
yep.
phew. Put that worry up on the shelf. It's there. You're good to go. You're in this because of that. Whether you grew up people telling you that, you love to be in front of a mic, all that stuff. You're already here. You're here. So now let's focus on the acting. And that's where people fall short. They forget that it's acting. And I often say that voiceover, especially voiceover commercials, are the hardest acting genre there is because you have to take a piece of copy that's, in a 30 or 60-second time frame and make it sound like it's conversation, and it's got all these silly words like introducing and new and just this Tuesday or whatever, and sound like you're talking to somebody. It's hard to do in your own voice.
Yeah.
And that's why so many people who come into voiceover and who'll coach with me, they're like, God, I have a great voice and I get great copy and blah blah blah, but I'm not booking. And I'm like, stop worrying about your voice. Let's get the acting. So the pre-life is a way to sort of establish yourself in this spot. Even if the spot starts with introducing new tide or whatever, there has to be a reason you're saying what you're saying. Every commercial is a reason, so you create that reason. I'm in the laundry room and my son plays baseball and his uniform's always dirty, and I'm like, introducing new tide because I need this. Think of the way
Yeah.
to put yourself into the commercial and create that scene. I always say, pretend it's an on-camera commercial. What would you be doing? I always highly, highly suggest my voiceover students go take an on-camera commercial class because you learn how to act in a commercial when you take an on-camera commercial class. And it helps you act. It helps you create this scene. Pretend you're in a on-camera scene, and create this little scene, create the bubble. Where am I? Who's the person I'm talking to? What am I doing? What am I wearing? Do I have the dirty baseball uniform in my hand or whatever it might be? But kind of create that scene so that then the words you say, will flow easier. It usually can work. It takes practice and it takes a little, I always say it might add an extra 30 seconds to your audition prep, but it's worth it. So that to me is about how you can create a pre-life and how it really will set the stage and kind of launch you into a little bit more of a natural read.
I find it so helpful when I get commercial spots that actually have off to the side or in brackets underneath each VO line or whatever, but a description of what the visual is,
Yeah.
right? It helps me because, going back to what you were talking about on how difficult the voice acting is, the acting side in commercials, you get a script. On one hand, you'll get a script that is just straight up sales copy, but it can't sound salesy, right?
Yeah.
The directions are literally, it can't sell. And it's like, how do you, as soon as you say the word introducing, like, how do you not make that sound salesy? So there's obviously struggle there. Then the other side, the other end of the spectrum that I get that drives me crazy are these commercials that are like abstract poetry. Like Like,
I know.
I have like, there's absolutely nothing in the copy that has anything to do with whatever the product is
I
at
mean,
all. That's going to happen through the visuals, which is great. But
right.
if I don't know what the visuals are, how do I translate? So when I can get visuals or uh, sometimes references are really helpful. Background music can like
Yeah,
totally change the approach, although that doesn't come very often. But any little extra bit that you can send, it makes a big difference in our ability to interpret some of these things and try to figure out what some of these things are. But yeah,
absolutely. And this
just
is
try to go in cold start. It doesn't work usually.
no, take the time to read the specs, because that casting director, and this is kind of like a, if I had a pet peeve, actors that don't really read the specs and kind of absorb it. We have spent a lot of time with that ad agency producer, or account exec, or copywriter, or whoever it is, really gleaning from them what they want or
Sure.
envision or think for that voice. We're on your side. We want you to get the booking, because then I'll get hired again.
Yep.
So we're trying to help you. And as I do so much of this in my coaching, and I'm telling actors, you know, words like introducing and only 99 cents and new, words that are advertising words. Yes, they're not part of our normal conversation, but let them do the work themselves. Those words will do the work themselves. We don't
Yep.
hit them hard nowadays.
Yep.
So, you have to find the way to make yourself comfortable saying these things. And again, these are things that I work on with students, but you have to, the easy peasy trick to get into that is to create your scene and be a part of that. Stop focusing on, okay, well, I'm going to tweak this word and hit this, and then I'm going to go in this register. And they've spent so much time focusing on their sound and not the acting. And that's what's important. And I do acknowledge most people and get into voiceover without an acting background. Yeah, it's just because we got into it because we have a great voice,
You couldn't have
and
paid me money to go to drama school or drama
right.
class when I
And
was in
so
school.
that's why, my coaching, like the way I coach, I teach people, okay, I acknowledge you didn't go to NYU theater school for 4 years. Here's tips, tricks, hacks, techniques that will help you sound like you did. And that's why you get a good coach who can help you, you know, you decipher specs, put your interpretation on them, and then articulate it the way that is authentic to you. And you learn that in coaching and things like that. So, but it is an arts, it is an art form, and
Yep.
it is, most importantly, it needs to sound, organically and kind of authentically you, as much as possible. And it's hard. I get it. I get it.
Let's dig into this a little bit deeper because I know at one point you had a self-direction app.
Hmm.
There's a lot of us who can get into the booth when we are being directed and we can deliver
Sure.
a great read. But more often than not, in order to get to that opportunity, we have to self-direct on the audition. So pre-life, we just walked through that, and I think that's really helpful. Are there any other tips? I'm sure there's thousands of them, but what are a couple of other tips that you could give to the actor who maybe struggles with the self-direction on the audition? What are some other things that we can be thinking about
Yeah.
outside of the obvious of, take a minute with the script, try to set up that pre-life? Are there things that we can be doing?
Yeah. I mean, couple things. You brought up my app. I created that app. It was 2012 when I created that. I just took it off the market 2 years ago because I wanted to kind of update it. And um, if you don't mind, like I'm actually now making kind of a video version of it, so there'll be more. But um, the way that I have helped actors with this self-direction thing is I have boiled commercials down. There's 5 basic commercial directions. That's how they write commercials. And as a voice actor, it's important to know these directions and then, find your triggers to get into these each direction. And this is again what I teach. So that will streamline your audition process. Again, having said that, I do acknowledge that some casting directors and, specs you might get from wherever could be so verbose that you're just like, oh, what? I can't tell. Is this a real person? Is it a snarky person? But usually you can. You can take all that stuff and go, okay, a Ryan Reynolds type. Okay, that's my ride, dry, snarky guy. Okay, they want a hip swagger, Matthew McConaughey type. There's my sexy voice guy, or whatever it might be. Then you sort of streamline that, and then whatever your triggers are that you have discovered along the way that work for you to get into that, you can then vocalize it. I'm not sure if I'm making this clear, but there are ways to streamline your self-directing. You have to kind of understand the directions. You also have to kind of understand what your basic triggers are to get into each direction, and then use that to interpret the copy. But again, this is also where acting and why acting is important.
Yeah.
But also, again, as I've said earlier, I do acknowledge that most people don't come from that acting background. So things that I have worked on, kind of the tricks and hacks and techniques, they're very divisive. I get that. I acknowledge it, but they work. And this is what will help people, then voice the commercial. But it's really important to put your stamp on it, because I think the biggest mistake, besides, always worrying about so much about how you sound, that people make is they don't do their own voice. They automatically get into the booth, and they might be talking just like I'm talking now in regular, but once they step up to the mic, suddenly everything's right up in here, and they put on their really pretty voice. That's what
I feel like you're accusing me right now.
No. I mean, that's what
because that's absolutely what happens to me, just to be clear. So
I call it the lure of the microphone. There's, let's
so
say, like,
hard.
there's nothing cooler than stepping into your booth and it's like, my happy place. And there's that gorgeous mic and your lighting and we love it. And then, we put the headphones on and we love our voice. We love our things, so that's the biggest mistake. Because what happens, again, I call it putting on your pretty voice. Not that it doesn't sound great. It sounds beautiful. Everybody's pretty voice sounds good. But when you pitch up, because you're actually pitching up your voice. I was going to say pinching, but it is kind of pinching. You're pitching up your voice. And when you do that like that, it actually, there is a physiological term for it, and I forgot what it is, but it masks anything that might have been, like, as you can hear I'm doing now, anything that might have been kind of unique about your voice to begin with. But when you just leave your voice relaxed, then naturally there comes my rasp and things like that. That's what we want to hear, not the pretty pitched up voice. So again, I'm not sure if I answered your question, but I think it's really important as the voice actor to find your triggers for each of the possible directions. Keep a list in your booth. Like, okay, when they want a real person, I do A, B, and C. Because your A, B, and C might be different than, the next guy. Kind of get to know, like, your sort of go-tos that put you in that place, and then you can expand upon that. Oh, I know this casting. Okay, it's a real person. That's me doing A, B, and C. But I know this casting director, she really likes ad libs. So I'm going to throw some of those in there. Or they want me to be a wry, dry, snarky guy. Okay, well, that's me doing A, B, and C. But also, I'm going to do my best impersonation of Kevin Hart or Ryan Reynolds or whatever it might be. So every actor's going to kind of have their go-tos. And once you get comfortable with that, it sort of flows. It just kind of comes out. It takes getting used to. It's practice, but it does happen. And the best practice you can do, record yourself doing it like instinctively how you would do it. And then take some time, go through your triggers, your A, B, and C or whatever it might be, and then record yourself and compare it. You're going to go, whoa, that's the real Marc, or that's whoever it might be.
I legitimately have some sort of blockage in my brain after 20 years of radio. And I haven't been on the air in 10 years, but it's still there, to the point where I will get a script and I will be sitting out in my office and I'll get the script and I'll read over the script, or I'll be out on the couch or something. I'll read over the script and kind of read it and be like, yeah, okay, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. And as soon as I go, the booth is right over my shoulder. As soon as I go in there, what the hell is that? Where did that come? That is not what we just discussed doing while we were sitting out there on the couch. Like,
it's rip and read. You're a radio guy. Rip and read.
I just can't get it out of my head.
I
So,
know. I work with so many radio guys or former news anchors, and they all have the problem.
yep.
It's just it gets in your pores. It's a
It's
tough
like
thing to do,
some
but
sort of
there
complete
are some tricks.
psychological
There are
barrier
some
there.
tricks, Mark, that you can do to not sound that way. There really are.
I need
So
to hide the microphone.
yeah,
I need to secretly record myself while I'm sitting on the couch doing it because
yeah,
the read
yeah.
on the couch is always so much better than
Always
the
the
read when
best
I
one.
ultimately get in the
I
booth.
know.
But
I know. I hear you.
I don't want to go here because I get people get angry with me when I go here, but I feel
Oh,
like I have to go here because you're very much on the pulse of what is happening right now. Are you thinking about AI at all? Where you're at?
not really.
I feel like in the beginning, not in the beginning. Last year, there was a bunch of high profile things. I think Coca-Cola did a fully, completely AI created ad, and there was a part of it that felt like it's just like shiny new object, right? Like we got to play
Yeah,
with this, and then they play with it, and then it didn't work as good as they thought, or it didn't land like they'd hoped, or it upsets people because it's AI, and we're already questioning the trustworthiness of every piece of digital content that exists to begin
yeah.
with, anyway. But I was just curious at the level that you're playing at, LA, big commercials, big brands, are they talking about it? Are they thinking about it? Or is it just, no, man, we just want people. We just want to work with people.
I the only kind of like it has come up, in some casting. Like I was casting this radio spot not too long ago, within the last year, and it was a non-union radio spot, and it was a cute like this is a client I've had for years. It was like a cute husband wife banter thing, and then there was it was for a car dealership, and then there was a tag at the end, like Southern California Toyota dealers. And so I said to my producer, "Oh, you want us to cast the tag guy?" And he goes, "Oh, I was afraid you're going to ask me that." I said, "What?" And he said, "They want us to use AI for it because it would be like Southern California, Northern California, Central California, like all those." And
All
then
the different versions.
so if it had been a union spot, they couldn't have done that
Right.
because then, the two actors. And so that was the first time I kind of went, "Arr." But, and the only other one that I felt a punch was I do a lot of casting, or I did for an agency in Virginia that does a lot of like the U.S. Coast Guard, Air Force, and they used to do these really cool spots. The U.S. Army that would air on TV as well as like in movie theaters. Beautiful spots. And I loved working with this guy. He's great. And I've worked with him for probably 17, 18 years. And he just told me this year that that he's losing his job and they're doing them all AI now. And I just was like, oh, thanks. It wasn't his fault. He was,
Yep.
so I don't know. I mean, the power and the drama of those kinds of spots, because they're like, very Top Gun and,
Yeah.
really
Yep.
cool. I don't know how that's going to play out. I haven't seen any of them. I don't know if they're going to continue doing that, and hopefully he'll get his job back in some way, shape, or form, and then I'll get my job back with them. But that's the only other one that I'm aware of that I sort of lost to AI, and their government,
Yeah.
their military. So that was kind of a bummer.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. I've been spending a lot of time falling down the rabbit hole. I don't know. I've watched Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO, his podcast, absolutely fantastic
No,
podcast.
I didn't
And
know it. Yeah.
and he's gone so deep down the rabbit hole of AI, just trying to understand, what is the world going to look like in 5 years or whatever.
Scares me. It does scare
Yeah.
me outside of even what we do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think about my family. Things like that you think about, and just how much like it can infiltrate your life. That part of it scares me. But in the world of voiceover, yes, I get scared too, because am I going to have a job
Yep.
still?
I
Things
got
like
I got a daughter that's graduating high school this year. And I mean, we sat down a couple weeks ago and I told her straight up, I said, I know my kids are technologically challenged, like you would not believe how technological. I don't know how they're my kids and they're that technologically challenged, but so like to say AI, like I don't even know if she knows what I'm talking about. But we were having that conversation of, when you're thinking about what you're going to go to school for, you need to be thinking about, is this job that I'm going to go through to school for next year and go to college for however many years, is that job even going to exist
Well,
on the
see,
other
now that's
side of my
amazing to me. Like when my kids were graduating college, that that wasn't even a
It's
conversation.
not nothing you would even think about. And now I'm like literally sitting down and she's saying, "Well, I thought about this." And I'm like, "Nope, that'll probably be AI." "Well, what about this?" "Nope, that'll probably be AI." And like it's terrifying.
That's
And
frightening.
so trying to think about I'm always curious. I know no, we don't want to talk about it because we don't want to think
No.
about the
Yeah,
reality of it. But at the same time, I want to know, I want to know so that I can plan and prepare. And so I feel optimistic at this point, at least at that level. It's not a part of the daily conversation, for example, where
yeah.
they're not there yet. And that makes me feel good.
It's like I wanna know, but I don't wanna know,
Yeah.
that's where I'm at, and
There is a comfort in being oblivious.
yeah, the stuff I have some colleagues, and one of my friends was like, "You have to listen to this. You can't tell it's AI." I could still tell. He
Yeah.
couldn't, but I could. But, um, and then I have heard some that is pretty darn good. I don't know. I think is in terms of voiceover, where I first see it's really gonna make an impact is things like, and I hate to say this because I have a friend that's very heavily involved in audio description, but I think that things that where they don't need, and again, not to insult audio descriptors, but that's a little bit more of a bass kind of voice. You're just
Yep.
very calm and you're just talking, not
Yep.
robotic, but it's just so
Yep.
things that there's not going to be a lot of emotion and stuff. I think that's where
Yep.
it's going to start impacting. But other stuff, like animation and things like that, even commercials, most commercials, you need that human emotion to come through. But again, technology is fantastic, so who knows?
Yep.
You know. So thanks for
Well,
depressing
that
me.
was depressing. Yeah. Thanks for going there.
Mark, thanks for having me. Okay.
So, look, I know that you love working with voice actors and you've been working with voice actors just as long as you've been working on the casting side and obviously the better we are, the better it is for you, the easier it is for you to do your job. So you have a lot of different offerings for voice actors and you've done a lot of different things in the past and I'm sure you're cooking up some stuff as well. So talk to us a little bit about what options are out there if somebody wants to have an opportunity to work with you and learn from you and improve themselves while we still have a chance to beat the robots.
Thank you for asking. So I like I said, I've been coaching for about 30 years. So people can always reach out to me for that. And then I also I started, we were the first ones that started voiceover classes. You know, back in the day, believe it or not, there were workshops once in a while or workout groups,
Yep.
but there weren't classes where, you could meet a casting director and so on. In the voiceover world, my ex-husband is a on-camera commercial casting director, and they used to do them all the time. And one day he said to me, I think this was like 2007. He's like, "How come nobody does this in voiceover?" I was like, "Duh, I don't know." So I started doing them, and so we used to call it Meet the Pros, and now we call it the VO Pros. And so I offer, pre-pandemic, we used to do them in person here in LA. And then, of course, during the pandemic, I took them all on Zoom, and I've been keeping them on Zoom because people all over the world now can take these classes. So
Yep.
we have events where we'll have, animation casting directors or promo producers or agent nights or whatever. And so that's at our, it's called thevopros.com. And then, like I said, too, stay tuned. I'm in the middle of working on, kind of my coaching in a video form, which will be on the VO Pros platform. And I do things like, I go to conferences once in a while. Not that many. I pretty much have only focused on VO Atlanta and in the casting. And then I sometimes guest at a podcast or a workshop. I just did a workshop for a group out in New York the other day. And then I'll sometimes go around. We created a thing called the VO Roadshow a few years ago, and then we stopped it during the pandemic. But I do that with my fellow coach friends, like Jeff
Mhm.
Howell teaches promos, Tom Pinto does narration, Scott Parkin improv, Bob Bergen animation and stuff. So we're kind of picking that up a little bit too.
Nice.
So I'm around. If
Nice.
you
All
need to, if
right.
you want to find me, it's voicesvoicecasting.com.
Okay. We will make sure that that goes into the show notes so that you can look
Cool.
that up
Thank
and
you.
any of the upcoming courses, VO Pro stuff, we'll put all that into the show notes as well.
Thank you.
Mary Lynn, this has been fantastic. Thank you for your willingness to share and to be so open because It's tough. It's a competitive industry, but it's not even, I don't even know that competitive is the right word, because it's a tough industry. It's tough trying to get into the minds of all of these people when, especially when it's also remote,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, I've noticed it as much as I don't enjoy when my one agent in Toronto asked me to come in for an audition, and like going to Toronto it's like, it's 90 minutes when traffic's great, but it's 3 hours when traffic's bad, and traffic is pretty much always bad,
One way?
one way.
Phew.
But there's a difference when you're there in the room, and you give them a take and they say, "That was good. Tweak this." And, they don't always do that, but there's something to be said for having a little bit of feedback when you're in that audition process, and when you most of the time we don't have access to that, and we never know what happens to our audition, and we never know why we did or didn't get a job, or whatever, and it's a tough industry, and so it's nice to be able to peek into the brain of somebody on the casting side to say, "Do this, try this, think about this, come at it this way, or hit it from this direction." So, I just really appreciate you taking the time to share with us, and I'm very grateful that you were willing to do it.
Well, thank you for having me, and yeah, casting directors are on your side. We want you to get a booking, so, yeah, I love what I do, and I love, working with talent and hearing new talent and stuff. And you're right, it is much harder than it used to be, for sure. But the cream does rise to the top. I really
Yep,
truly believe that. So stay on top of your game, people.
right on.
Yeah.
All right, Marilyn, thank you so much for coming on today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark. Take care.